I'm Paul Rushworth-Brown, and we're here with Linea Tanner today, who's written a novel. What's a young lady like you doing writing about the Celts and the Romans in 41 AD?
Well, interesting question. I've always enjoyed ancient Rome, and I think I was inspired to write this novel after I visited London, and I saw the statue of a warrior queen by the name of Boudica, who actually led their united the British tribes and revolted against Rome.
Spirits of the deep wood, heed my call. Bring forth the blight that shall consume all.
In the shadow of Rome, Britannia burns. Kings chosen by the empire turn on one another, and a druid's curse is spoken into fire and blood. Bloodwolf and Raven will rise, not to save a kingdom, but to destroy it. Apollo's Raven, where myth, power, and forbidden love collide.
Okay, so they were the Celtic tribes that used to paint their faces blue, and they were quite a force in Britannia when the Romans arrived, weren't they? I've had a number of people come on the show that like to write about the Celts and that period of time. But what do you think the obsession is?
Well, I mean, they were a warlike culture, but I think probably modern day audiences relate to their relationship with nature. And probably they've read like Arthurian legend, which goes into some of their mythology, and it's a fascinating culture, in which you think they're warlike, but they also have some profound religion in which they believe, like in the resurrection of a soul.
And believe it or not, my bloodline comes from the Celts, the Brigantes.
I have heard of them.
And I mean, Brigantes, that was sort of like a tribe of people that the Romans were actually terrified of.
It was. So the tribe that I mainly focus on my book is the Kentiaki, which were located in Kent, UK.
Okay, so down south.
Right, down south.
Yeah. Another funny thing is I was actually born in Kent.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. So a lot of.
Yeah, I love that area. Yeah, I love that area.
Okay, so prior to being a novelist, you actually were a systems analyst, or you worked in the technological, in the tech world, didn't you?
Right. I worked in the biotech world, and I worked in what's called regulatory affairs, and I was the one who helped coordinate putting applications together to support clinical trials for drugs, and also to get approval in different countries for drugs.
Being a part of that, what sort of effect do you think that's had on your writing, on your process of writing?
I think what I gained from that is probably project management, being able to set goals. Also gives me research capabilities to maybe look into to various aspects of the history. I know when I researched this book, it wasn't only like historical accounts from the Romans and Celts, but also I looked into some archaeological finds in which there's some interesting tidbits that come from that too.
Can you give me an example?
One of the examples is that, and I've gone to some of the archaeological sites, but I've written about one of them is how much influence maybe Rome had on Britain before they actually occupied them in 43 AD. And there is a possibility that they actually may have had some troops in Britain that may have helped guard some of their merchants or their marketplaces. So, it's not for sure, but there's just some suggestion that they had a much more powerful impact than people realize.
And I suppose a possibility that they would. I mean, everybody hears about the full Britannia, but there's a possibility that they were there far earlier than what some people believe.
And I guess I kind of compare it to maybe like a Cleopatra's Egypt, because these tribes had to pay tribute, and they actually had to give up a lot of their children as Roman hostages to be raised in Roman homes. So that there was a lot of interference with Rome even before they occupied Britain.
Now, interestingly, you write about obviously the Roman influence on Britannia, but I suppose one of the niche things about your novel is it brings in that idea of mysticism and magic. Is that correct? Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, it does have that. And I primarily bring that from the Celtic viewpoint.
Okay. So that was all of that's sort of like involved with the druids and all that.
Right. And so I do take some of the magical elements such as shape shifting, maybe being able to see in the future, see through the eyes of an animal, magic fog, I call it a drink of oblivion where you erase someone's mind.
Okay. So Katrin is the protagonist, I believe.
Yes, she is.
And she's a warrior.
Yes.
Yeah. So the curse, there's a curse that heavily influences.
Okay. Right. So there is a curse, and the curse is that her father's former wife, who is a druid, casts a curse on him because he executes her, and her curse is that because of what he's doing to her, that his own son and daughter would rise out as I call him. Merrick is the blood wolf, and Katrin is the raven, and they would also destroy him and take over his kingdom.
Right, and there's a bit of a love tingle in there somewhere, isn't there, with Marcellus and Katrin?
Yes. So the story starts out with that Marcellus is accompanying his father on this trip, and they get into a heated disagreement on who's going to be the next heir in the kingdom. And so to reconcile the differences, they want to hold Marcellus as a hostage until they come to kind of a treaty or an agreement of what they're going to do. And so basically he's held as a hostage under Katrin's charge.
So he's her prisoner, and yet there's a bit of a love story there. How did you develop the tension in the story with regard to that? That I suppose there's a bit of an issue there with obviously Marcellus being her enemy, but also her falling in love with him. How did you build the tension?
Well, the ongoing tension throughout the first book is that they're both instructed to spy on each other, but they fall in love with each other, and so the tension is. It's always a conflict between doing their duty versus, following their heart. And so it's kind of back and forth with that tension where sometimes she feels that maybe he's betrayed her, or it's more likely, I would say no, Marcellus thinks more likely that Katrin has betrayed him in certain circumstances.
So you've been to a lot of these places where the novel is set, haven't you? So I assume you've been to Kent and London.
I have been to Kent, yes. Yeah. And then I've hiked over Dover Cliff, which we found out was a lot longer than I anticipated. It was about 11 to 12 miles, but it was quite eye-opening to just look across the English Channel and just kind of, just feel the wind, because it can be very chilly there. And I remember, and it's the first scene in my book where it's foggy in the distance, and you really can't see France, but you see these ships just kind of come out of the fog just suddenly. And so I could imagine maybe some Roman ships just coming suddenly out of the fog, which surprises people on the land.
The White Cliffs of Dover, Roman ships coming through the fog. How else did you use it? From what you saw as when you were there, what else did you use as far as the setting and the descriptions of the land and all that type? I mean, what fascinated you that you said, "Oh, right, I need to put this in the novel, these descriptions in the novel"?
Right. I focus on Dover Cliffs, but also focus maybe on some of the forests around the area, and also I was curious about the Dover Castle. And I imagine what's interesting about the Dover Castle is that it actually has a Roman lighthouse there, and that's probably dates back to, I don't know, 1st century AD. And so I can imagine that the Celts maybe began building a fortress there on top in the same place that maybe this Dover Castle was. And so that's what I remember, and just really going up that hill and seeing that fortress.
The novel is very, very descriptive from what I understand, but the story remains character driven. How did you decide when to linger a little bit and with the description? And when to pull back?
Well, I needed to do the description, to really build the world. But I try to use the description to set the mood too. And when I pull back on the description is when you go more into the action scenes, and then it focuses on the action scenes. And at that time, the character would not be focusing on any memories or anything like that. It's just completely focused on the action and the immediate what's happening.
Sword fighting.
Yes, those are quick, short sentences, and it's in it's I'm trying to envision myself. I actually had my husband kind of help me on this too, because he used to take judo, but just I just pictured myself. Just like, what would you see? Like you're fighting someone, but then you turn around and hear someone else. And so that's what I try to do, is just really focus on the immediate action and how do you respond.
He crossed the Atlantic chasing opportunity, not suspicion. In the wilds of colonial America, a young Scot joins a surveying expedition to draw a line that will shape history. But when a man is found dead, the land turns hostile, trust fractures, and Angus MacKay finds himself standing on the wrong side of the truth. In a world where borders are dangerous and innocence is easily lost, how do you prove yourself when death is already on the line?
Did you find that difficult?
No, I actually just almost picture it like in a movie, and I begin to choreograph it. But sometimes I think I've actually had my husband kind of help me, like how can you get out of this hold? If you're a certain size versus another person, and he gives me hints on how to do this.
Okay. And but we're talking about people holding swords and that type. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Braveheart, and some of the scenes, or the fighting scenes in that are pretty bloodthirsty, and B, quite technical. The length of your scenes, or the fighting scenes. Okay, you said that you choreograph that. I would find it very, very difficult to choreograph a sword fighting scene. What sort of problems did you have besides, I suppose, your husband helping you?
Right. I mean, it just just trying to use some of the right words as far as like when someone thrusts their sword. How do you defend against that? And do you parry? Do you I don't know what the right word is, or just defend yourself in some way, or use your shield or whatever.
Yeah, right. I mean, because the Roman army was quite disciplined, whereas I assume that the Celts that you speak about were quite wild and undisciplined. So how did you build that into the equation?
I probably I have put the more disciplined part of the Roman army, not so much into Apollo's Raven, because there's not a huge battle in this particular novel, but in the next book, the army does fight against with Merrick against capture against the Cantiaci. And in this case, I do some of the techniques that the Romans did, as far as doing a shield wall and stabbing in between the shields.
Right. Okay.
And then I do this also in Amulet's Rapture, which shows a scene where Marcellus is leading a battle.
Okay, so there's.
Two lives separated by decades. Two stories shaped by war, loss, and the search for something better. In 1943, Bernhard Lang is swept into the tide of World War II, a young man fighting to survive a world collapsing around him, until an unexpected ally shows him a life he never imagined. 22 years later, 12-year-old Joseph Holloman is drowning in a childhood no one should have to endure, alone, until he meets Frank Gardner, a quiet man with a past he rarely speaks of. But Frank carries a secret, one that reaches back to Bernhardt's war-scarred journey and forward into Joseph's desperate hope for escape. Across time, across trauma, across lives shaped by forces beyond their control, their stories collide in a moment that changes everything. Between the clouds and the river is where the past finally finds its voice, and redemption finds its way home.
Four novels in the series, isn't there?
Yes, there is now.
Yeah. And okay, so this is the first novel in the series. Have you written any of the others?
Right. I've written 4 books in the series, and they do take place in different areas of the Roman Empire in Britain. So the second one is Dagger's Destiny. The third one is Amulet's Rapture. And then the fourth one is Skull's Vengeance. And then the 5th book, which I'm writing right now and completing, is called Dragon's Anvil, and that is going to end the series.
You're a machine. I don't know how you do it.
I don't know about that. I'd like to write even faster.
Once somebody has finished the series, will they take away what lingers in their mind about the series after they've read it?
Well, I'm trying to focus on different themes, and one of them is love versus duty. Another one is it's political corruption, and that's in the Celtic, in both societies, Celtic and Roman, but particularly in the Roman society. Also, vengeance versus redemption, and also like loyalty versus betrayal.
So there's some important themes that sort of like come out of
right, and what I'm hoping is that even through political corruption, everything else, that probably what matters is actually love in the end, and that's what matters most.
Yeah, and now Catherine, she obviously being a warrior princess, she has to be a very, very strong woman, doesn't she?
She does, and in a way, it's a story focuses on her because she's the one who goes through most of the trials, and Marcel's will be brought in too, but she's the one who I think whose character has to build the most, or I have to build on her character the most because she's going to have to take over an army and lead them.
Yeah. Okay, so having this strong woman, and of course the Celts, especially up around Yorkshire, Gantes and that, their queen was actually a woman, wasn't she?
So who was that? That was
I can't remember her name now. I think you said her name at the beginning, didn't you? When we were on there?
So Boudica was kind of head of one of the tribes. The Catevilani, sorry, Iceni. She was Iceni.
Right. So in a roundabout way, with this strong woman, Catherine, is there any sort of like hidden agenda there with regard to the strong woman being the protagonist in this Roman Celtic tough battle scenes and all that type of thing, or themes?
Yeah. So I didn't want to present her just like a badass or whatever, but I mean she is vulnerable in the beginning, and it's only through trials that she has to learn how to resolve problems or whatever, and so it's not completely that, and I know that part of the reason her army is going to follow her is because she has these powers, these mystical powers that they're awestruck by. So it's more than that. I want to present her as a more of a complex character, and who really does love Marcellus, and she's very loyal to him.
Yeah, right. And do we find out in this novel that they get together?
Yes, there will be a conclusion to Dragon's Anvil, and I will see how people respond to that.
Okay.
Because it is forbidden love, and there's a lot going against them. So, and there are sacrifices that have to be made.
Yeah. So that was. I imagine that back then, before the Romans fully invaded Britannia, a Roman soldier and a Druid queen or princess, them sort of like having a love affair would have been quite not the right thing to do.
No, it would be considered almost betrayal. And so my male protagonist is the great grandson of Mark Antony, and I did do that for a reason, because it's almost like a tragic love story, like Mark Antony and Cleopatra.
Right. All right. So, Linea, we're coming to my favorite part of the interview. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 10 quick fire questions.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you need to say the first thing that comes to your mind. So it can be a one-word answer if you like. Okay, so the first question, ancient Rome or ancient Britannia?
Ancient Britannia.
Sword or prophecy?
Prophecy.
Research rabbit hole or writing flow? Do you know what I mean by the question?
Writing straightforward. I don't think I try not to get into rabbit hole.
Myth inspires history or history inspires myth?
History inspires myth.
Favorite place you've traveled to do the research?
Probably Dover Cliffs.
Okay. Morning writing or late night writing?
Late night writing.
One word that best describes Catherine.
Resilient.
Hardcover, paperback, or Kindle?
Paperback.
A book that first made you love history?
I read The Egyptian, I think, when I was in 7th grade, and I think that's the book that really got me into to history. And also I read Ben-Hur.
Okay. If Apollo's Raven were adapted to a film or series, who would play Catherine?
I think her name is Kate Winston. She played Lagatha in The Vikings.
And what sort of this isn't one of the questions, by the way, I'm just making this up on the go. But what characteristics do you take from yourself?
From yourself? I think just her journey.
Okay.
And to me, it kind of represents my journey, but a more like bigger picture. I don't know, more mythical.
Wonderful. It sounds absolutely fascinating, Linea. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Paul.